teacher! I could show you the ways of the Force!
What will Rey's fate be in the final episode of the new Star Wars trilogy? If you haven't seen it yet, spoiler warning for the Star Wars The Last Jedi. There's a lot of speculation about Rey and what will happen to her now that the Resistance is all but completely gone, and Luke, the last true Jedi, is dead. It is shown that there are other Force users in the galaxy, and maybe she will start a new Jedi training academy like Luke tried to do, but won't it just end the same way? Rey's an interesting character because, as we find out in The Last Jedi, her parents were nobodies. They weren't Jedi or Sith or even great heroes, but even so, she can wield the Force and is likely just as strong with it as Kylo Ren is.
I've seen this raw strength only once before.
The new Star Wars trilogy is all about dichotomy, the light side and the dark side, good and evil, and we consider these things polar opposites. But are they?
A balance.
The Jedi of the Republic were considered to use the Force for good, to follow the strict teachings of the Jedi Code. They are taken as children and indoctrinated in the way of the Jedi. They could form no physical attachments and were restricted from using powers considered to be dark. But when you look at the Force, it seems more complicated than just good and evil. Where do we draw the line? Both Luke and Rey were trained as adults in the ways of the Force, and they follow the light side of the Force. The question is splitting the Force into good and evil really a balance, or is there a better alternative? The Grey Jedi was a term that dates back to the Great Sith Wars, a series of battles between the Jedi and the Sith that took place thousands of years before the events of the first trilogy. The Sith rose up to fight against the Jedi in a galactic conflict and were ultimately defeated and forced underground. The Grey Jedi arose during this time when the Jedi Council of the time reinterpreted the Jedi Code to dissuade Jedi from ever being influenced by the dark side of the Force. This was a measure meant to stop another Sith war. However, some Jedi didn't agree with this new interpretation of the code. They didn't agree with the dogmatic ideals of the Jedi and instead formed their own sect, known as the Grey Jedi. Grey Jedi were not afraid to form personal attachments and were known to test the limits of the Force. They used emotion to draw from both the light and dark side of the Force, but would not succumb to the dark side, nor would they ally themselves with the Jedi Order and the Jedi Code. The Grey Jedi did believe there was a light side and a dark side to the Force, but one cannot exist without the other. To find a true balance, you must master both. Now, there have been several Jedi in the Star Wars universe that were said to walk the line between the light and the dark side of the Force. Qui-Gon Jinn's appearance in The Phantom Menace was where the term Grey Jedi was first coined. He respected the Jedi Code, but he did not always follow it.
Do not defy the Council, Master, not again.
I shall do what I must, Obi-Wan.
He used the Force for his own benefit. Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's apprentice during the Clone Wars, was considered to be a Grey Jedi after leaving the Jedi Order before her training was complete. She walked between the path of the Jedi and the Sith. Even Mace Windu, who is considered one of the strongest Jedi in history, learned some of the Sith arts. Windu fights with a much more aggressive lightsaber style and is known to use some darker Force powers. There have been others in the Star Wars franchise who are said to be neither part of the light or the dark, but the space in between, like the Bendu from Star Wars Rebels.
Jedi and Sith wield the Ashtar and Bogan, the light and the dark. I'm the one in the middle, the Bendu.
He first speaks about the imbalance in the Force user Kanan. He tells Kanan the powers of the Sith cannot lead you into evil. It is the person who must choose where they ally themselves. The Grey Jedi path is one that seems to have a much deeper understanding of the Force than either the Sith or the Jedi. It is a more balanced path, where the user confronts both emotions of selflessness and of insecurity. Luke tries to teach Rey about finding a balance between peace and destruction. In The Last Jedi, he mentions how he thought to kill Kylo Ren in a moment of hesitation, letting himself fall to his own emotions, and Luke is said to be one of the most powerful Jedi who ever lived. In fact, his attempt to return the Jedi Order to its original dogmatic ideology is likely one of the reasons it fell. He tried to use the same teachings of the old Jedi Order, and it caused a split in his pupils. As I've said, the new Star Wars trilogy is all about balance. When Kylo and Rey both attempt to pull Rey's lightsaber toward them, they are completely evenly matched. Neither one can pull more than the other, and because of this, the saber is torn apart. As Snoke says, darkness rises, and light to meet it. In the histories of the Jedi lore, there has always been this concept of balance between good and evil, that no one side could overpower the other, for an imbalance in the Force meant chaos within the Force itself. Anakin Skywalker is often referred to as part of a great prophecy to bring balance to the Force. Many people believe this was a mistake, and when he becomes Darth Vader, they were wrong in thinking he had anything to do with the prophecy. I think it's much more likely that Anakin did fulfill the prophecy. The Jedi had ruled the galaxy for centuries since the Great Sith War, and though the Sith still existed, they were scattered and much fewer in number. There was a great imbalance with the light side of the Force being much more prominent in the galaxy, stretched thin. It is possible the abundance of unused dark Force energy brought about the Clone Wars and the Empire itself, subtly influencing the minds of the people throughout the galaxy. With the help of Emperor Palpatine, Anakin essentially wipes out the Jedi, leaving Yoda and Obi-Wan the only true light side Force users left, balanced by the Emperor and his apprentice. A true balance of the Force. Now the question comes back once again to Rey. In the throne room after their battle with Snoke's Praetorian guards, Kylo asks Rey to join him in the First Order, similar to the way that Vader asked Luke to join with him. But maybe Kylo didn't want Rey to join the dark side, but instead act as a foil to his own darkness. What if he wanted to find a balance between the light and the darkness? After their fight, Rey chooses not to kill Kylo while he's unconscious because, as Luke realized, it wasn't his decision to make. Like Darth Vader, maybe Kylo still has some good in him. He is conflicted, and that's what makes him such an interesting character. Though he may never be able to return to the light side, would it be unreasonable to think that he and Rey could find a middle ground? A true balance of good and evil? Now, will J.J. Abrams decide to go that route? Probably not. Lucas has stated, selfish people live on the dark side of the Force, compassionate people on the light side. But as the Jedi do, it is possible to step too far into compassion and selflessness, and lose one's own sense of self. You lose your identity. In contrast, Rey and Kylo are both dynamic characters with real flaws. Maybe Episode 9 will show us things aren't always just black and white. But whichever side you're on, may the Force be with you. Thanks for watching another episode of Pizza Slice Pop Culture. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay up to date on all the great pop culture stuff right here on Co-Optimistic. See you next time.